So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Samsung Galaxy S23 1 month later. Now, I've had this phone since it launched, and I want to share with you my thoughts on it so far. I did cover a full review, but it's been about a month now, and this phone continues to pretty much impress me in most areas of what you would want for just your regular, smartphone or your standard size smartphone. This is not an ultra phone. This is not the largest phone out there, but it hits a lot of great points that I want to discuss here with you today. We're going to begin by talking about the ergonomics of this phone. So a month later, I keep picking this up, and I feel like this is one of the most comfortable phones to hold on the market today. It just has a very thin bezel. It has a light body with a very comfortable, corners here. It just feels good to hold this device, and it feels like you have a good amount of screen size without sacrificing, a super large weight or basically having an uncomfortable phone. The feel is light and big enough for most usages. Now, if you say this screen is small, then you just love super large phones, because honestly, 6.1 inches is pretty sizable for what you actually need to do on a smartphone day to day. Now, if you're using your phone like it's a tablet or like it's a laptop, like it's the only thing you use for your computing needs, this might be a little too small for you. But other than that, I think for most people, for phone usage, this is fantastic. The thing only weighs 168 grams. So when you're holding it, it feels like a featherweight. Even when you put on a case for this phone, it also feels quite light. So it's not heavy, whether you're using this with a case or not. However, if you use a bulkier, like OtterBox style case, then it definitely will weigh it down a little bit. Now, this does have Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the front and the rear, so that kind of given me peace of mind that it's going to be very strong. I've also put a screen protector on because even though it has Gorilla Glass Victus 2, it will still scratch. You can see Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the back as well. And these polished aluminum edges definitely make this phone feel very premium. I really do appreciate the symmetrical look of this device as well 1 month later. I think it's one of the cleanest looking phones out there, mostly because they made these cameras go straight down. You could see the edges are flat right there. The screen is flat, and then when you go to the punch hole, it's perfectly centered, and then the USB-C perfectly centered right there. You can see the SIM card tray right there, as well as the speaker right there. Everything is very, very symmetrical, and it's just a pretty looking phone. It doesn't really wow in a ton of different ways, but it kind of nails the basics, and it does it very well. It's one of the best looking Samsung Galaxy phones ever made, I feel like, and it doesn't really do itself justice, I think, as much in video. This phone just looks like another Galaxy in video, but go pick one of these up in the store and you'll see why, what I'm talking about. It feels premium and very nice to hold. Also looks really great. Now, you could say, well, it looks like an A series. No, it's the other way around. A series try to look like an S series, but they feel plasticky and cheap by comparison to an S series. Now, taking things over to display, I've also appreciated how bright display gets, as well as the ability to tweak extra brightness modes when you need it. I also like the newer, Eye Comfort Shield. They added this enhancement mode here with enhanced comfort. This really does give you a much more comfortable feel when you're trying to reduce those tones, those color tones down. Now, some people do like to leave it in the natural mode anyway, so you can see natural right there, and take it out of vivid to reduce the color tone even more. So definitely that's a nice touch overall, I would say. So go to display. You can also see that there's no ability to change the resolution on this phone. That's because this one launches with a 1080p panel. However, because it's being stretched across a 6.1 inch screen size, this has over 425 nits or ppi. So it's a high pixels per inch, regardless of the fact that Samsung isn't putting a 2K display. A lot of people do think that, the Samsung devices have cut back on features, they're not worth it as much anymore. But actually what has happened is they cut down on the resolution to give you longer battery life on the phone. And I think it's a fair trade-off, especially at this size of a screen, 6.1. Now on the Galaxy S23 Plus, I wish that was a little sharper, but with this one, it's pretty much fine. Like, there's no real issue, because it's not just about the pixels per inch, it's about the viewing angles, it's about the actual quality of the panel. And there are some 2K panels out there that aren't as good as this 1080p panel. So don't think that just because you're not getting a 2K display anymore that you're not getting a high quality panel. You are. I also do like how this panel is 19:9 aspect ratio. Essentially all that means is that the actual display width is wider than it used to be on some of the older Galaxy S series phones, which were a little bit narrow, so they felt a little bit weird, you know, when it comes to when you turn them sideways and stuff. They just felt really squished and narrow. Now, this phone right here has got a good width. It's great for reading content and stuff like that. And when you do turn it into landscape, it feels like a bigger display. So I do like the aspect ratio I decided to go with here. Always on display is pretty much standard on all Galaxy phones, so that's not really something to give it too much credit for because it has had it for a while, but it's still nice that you have that ability. Now, I do also like the One UI 5.1 along with Android 13. You do have a lot of nice widget support here that come with the Samsung experience. Also, in settings, you have a ton of advanced features that are not found in just regular vanilla Android. So you do have kind of, you know, most of what you can do with a regular Android phone, but Samsung's enhancements on top. Also, they are pushing out software updates pretty regularly. You can see I have one I'm going to do right now after this video, but they are pushing them out pretty regularly here on the Samsung devices, and they do get several years of software support. So that's pretty good. But mostly what I really like is all the enhanced features like DeX is one of my favorites here. This can be end of story for a lot of people when talking about do they want a Samsung phone, because you can turn your phone into a computer. So that's pretty nice. Also, if I go over here, you'll see that if you are using a Windows computer, they have a great link to Windows feature that really makes this a great experience with that. And if you're specifically using a Samsung Windows computer, it's even more in sync. So that's something to point out right there. You do have these special modes as well that will let you, customize your routine to make it a little bit smoother with your smartphone. You can see sleep, theater, driving, exercise, relax, work, and more. You can add more modes right here. You can even make your own custom modes here with your own emoticons right there to kind of make it look the way you want it and set up your own routine. So yeah, we can go ahead and cover a ton with software. Here's some of the wallpapers that come stock with the phone. We could cover the software all day. The fact of the matter is, this is very feature packed. You are operating with both Google and Samsung services here. So at first, the setup takes a little bit longer than some phones, but not very long. And some people might not be a biggest fan of the icons, but you can go ahead and change those as well within the Galaxy theme store. And honestly, some people think that the Samsung experience is just not that simple. Actually, it's more like it's simple, and then if you want to tweak around with it, you can. If you don't, leave it alone, and then it's pretty simple to use. Overall, the software has been pretty fun to use. Really do like the efficiency optimizations and stuff like that. Now, performance is one of the biggest reasons why I have to give this phone some praise. It did really well in my speed test that I've done so far, really showing that the animations are strong on the newer Samsung phones. And that's something that we complained about before, is that they weren't that strong. And, the thing is with the Samsung devices is that, in the past, they would kind of like, when I would go through my RAM management, they would kind of stutter and stuff like that. But these days, they don't really do that anymore. And that whole spiel about, oh, we'll try that phone in 2 years, see how it does, that doesn't apply anymore. These phones are so fast, it doesn't matter. It's going to perform pretty much the same, whether it's a year from now or 2 years from now. That doesn't matter. It's going to perform well. These Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2s in here are just beast of chipsets. They're clocked at very high clock speeds. They have a high amount of RAM for this size of a phone, 8 gigabytes of RAM. The performance, I don't got to keep going on and on. Samsung has nailed it here with performance. It's going to be one of your favorite things about the Galaxy S23. And one of the things about that performance that's pretty noticeable is that this phone doesn't really get that warm, when you're really pushing it. That's something that really proves that it's really efficient, because the S22 got pretty warm, like pretty darn warm compared to this phone when using. Now let's go ahead and talk about the camera. I've already covered, samples and stuff like that. So if you want to see true samples, go ahead and check out my review of this phone. I have a lot of them on there. But honestly, like I said before, it's the versatility. What I like about this phone is you can use this smaller size and you don't have to give up some of the features that you'll find on more premium ultra-like devices. You can see 30 times zoom is going to be more than enough for most people, actually probably overkill for most people. If you go over here to more, you'll get most of the features you're going to find on phones that are twice this size. So definitely what I love about this phone is that it's portable and it has all the features you're going to find mostly on a larger smartphone. Now, yes, it doesn't give you 200 megapixels, but it doesn't really matter. The 50 megapixels is still sharp enough. And if you want to stay in the 12 megapixel mode, those photos also turn out good. This is one of the best consumer cameras out there. It focuses incredibly fast, has a wide range of versatility, and it has really smooth video. All the settings are right there within the camera app. And you have super steady modes. You can do 8K video. I mean, this thing is, they could have called this a pro phone as well if they wanted to, because it does have pro-like features in the camera for sure. Now, from a battery perspective, the Galaxy S23, after a month, I have to say, well, this phone is not going to perform like a bigger device. Surprisingly, I think you're going to be pretty happy with it. This phone does not drain fast. It can make it through most of the day with no major issues, and you can probably get into the next day if you're a lighter user. Medium users will probably charge it every day. A heavy user can make it mostly the whole day with this phone, and then they're going to charge at the nighttime. Not before bed, maybe around 8 o'clock or so. But the thing is good. It'll work throughout the day for most people, which is saying a lot because the S22, I couldn't get that thing to make it the full day. So 3,900 milliamp hours lives inside the body, and a month later, I've been pretty happy with it. Also, I like how Samsung has improved their standby time. It doesn't phantom drain as much as it used to. It still does it more than I see on Pixel and iPhone, but overall, it's getting better, and that's a good thing because you don't want this phone just draining your pocket when you're not even using it. That's a problem I've been having with Samsung phones for a long time. It also charges relatively fast, faster than your competing iPhone, so that's pretty good, but nowhere near as fast as some of your OnePlus devices or some of those other products, those other Chinese phones that have like ridiculously fast charging. So definitely not the fastest, but not horrible. And lastly, wrapping it up here, the Galaxy S23 comes in some lovely colors: phantom black, green, cream, lavender, graphite, and lime. Some of those are exclusive, and it has great reception strength for phone call quality. So if you are looking for incredible phone call quality, this one's going to give it to you with really good reception strength as well. So it nails just being a phone also. So at the end of the day, I did give this a ton of praise in my 1 month later experience here, but I got to tell you, this phone feels like pinnacle or the top, of Samsung, what they can do with these type of phones. They can improve the cameras always, making those better. Those are just sensors and things like that. Of course, you can make the battery a little bit better. They could add 2K screen again if they wanted to make it sharper, but what's really the point? I do miss not having SD card support here. And honestly, an S Pen is probably not necessary on this smaller phone. Overall, it's an incredible device. The only thing I think would hold you back from trying this device out is if you really just don't like Samsung phones. And that's fair. It's your opinion to like what you want, and it's your choice. But if you do want to try Samsung, this one is a definite recommend, and I think you're going to be pretty darn happy here. The only thing that would make you less happy is if you think the screen is too small, or you just crave a little bit more specification, because this is not going to be your all-out top spec phone, but it's going to give you most of what you want in a high-end flagship phone while being comfortable to hold and use daily. Let me know your guys' thoughts on the Galaxy S23. Do you appreciate this device? Do you have it? Do you want to get one? Are you planning on skipping it? Let me know your thoughts down below. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.